Thank you. Our next presenter is Dr. Daphne Watkins from the University of Michigan.
Oh boy, we have some tough acts to follow this morning.
Do you think?
Good morning, everyone. So, I dream a world where the witnesses to Black male pain are brave enough to speak up and act on their behalf. So, not too long ago, I read a book by Bell Hooks. It's called Where We Stand. And if you've ever read this book before, you know that it's about the US class system. And it's hard to talk about the US class system without seeing just sprinkles of race and gender with every turn of the page in this book. And for example, there's a section in the book where Bell Hooks says, "I am a witness to male pain." And I remember the moment I read that and how I felt on the inside. I said, that is me. That is who I am. I am a witness to male pain. And not just any male pain, but Black male pain. And in this book, Bell Hooks, she really embraces this position as a bystander to the pain that boys and men experience on a daily basis. So what does it mean to be a witness to Black male pain? It means standing on the outskirts and watching what happens in their lives, witnessing, waiting, seeing their turmoil, their pain, their exposure, their vulnerability. Just watching from afar, keeping a distance though, right? For your own protection, or sometimes maybe for their protection. So for as long as I can remember, I have been a witness to Black male pain. Growing up, I can remember looking back over my childhood and thinking to myself, growing up with a father who had depression was life-changing for me. And to have a mother and a father who've stayed married for, multiple decades, having my father present was so important, but there was an emotional absence that we experienced on a daily basis, and that's what depression did to our family. So first as a child and then as an adult, I really didn't know that growing up with a father who had depression would have such a large impact on my life. I just sort of asked the questions and wanted to know more about what does it mean to be a Black man? What does it mean to be a Black man in America? And what does it mean to be a Black man in America who's suffering from a mental health disorder? And so that really changed everything for me. I just found myself asking more and more questions, and I ended up here. And speaking of questions, did you know that Black men tend to adhere to more traditional masculine norms than men from other racial groups? And by masculine norms, I mean things like stoicism, dominance over women, control, power. Think alpha male, right? So is that a problem? Is that a bad thing? No, it's actually not a bad thing. Except research also shows that Black men who tend to adhere to more traditional masculine norms also have poorer mental health than men who don't. So you see, that's the problem. The problem is if Black men are unwavering when it comes to their masculine norms, and they tend to adhere to traditional masculine norms, then they tend to have poorer mental health than men of other racial and ethnic groups. So they are suffering on a daily basis because they're holding themselves so tightly to these rules, to these definitions, how society sees them as men. So I think we can all agree on one thing today. I think we can agree that Black men get a bad rap, right? They really have a hard time in our society. Many Black men tend to grapple with their own definitions of mental health, believing just as many other communities of color that when it comes to mental health, you have two options. Either you're crazy or you're not. Now, that can be tough. That can be confusing and challenging for Black men because if they experience an emotion that falls outside of those two options, that leaves them even more confused. And then I think the same can be said for manhood, right? Many Black men believe, just as their fathers and their grandfathers did before them, that when it comes to manhood, you have two options. Either you're a real man or you're not. So in my eyes, the dilemma is clear. So I have to ask myself, how does a Black man who is experiencing mental health challenges, how do they maintain a persona that on one hand really just diminishes the ability to ask for help, but then on the other hand, hold so strongly to these ideas of control and strength and power that really derives from traditional masculine ideologies. So as for me, I am convinced that efforts made to improve the mental health and expand the masculine ideologies of Black men is going to help them, it's going to help their communities, it's going to help the nation as a whole. But I think it's up to us to really make a change and really to do something about this, right? There is a need for more settings where Black men can come together and they can talk with each other and they can disentangle what's happening in the world around them with regard to mental health, masculinity, and I would even add social support. So I can say that as a witness to Black male pain, I owe it to Black men to not stand in the shadows. And I would even go as far as to say, I want to dedicate my career to this. I want to dedicate my career to understanding as much as I can about the mental health of Black men and really doing what I can to unpack the stereotypes that society is putting on them to really make their lives better. Now, it's not just about Black men, okay? Now, that is my passion. That's what I care a lot about. But advancement in this area, it does more than help Black men. It helps those of us who want to help boys and men of all races improve their lives. I think there's so much that we can do in this effort. And so if we can do more to just understand the experiences that they're having, do more to create interventions to maybe promote their health in so many ways, I think this is our impact. This is social work's impact on this work. And my friends, this is where we are. And just like the book by Bell Hooks, this is where we stand. This is where I stand. This is where you stand. This is where we stand. So I dream a world where the witnesses to Black male pain are brave enough to speak up and act on their behalf. I am up for the challenge. Are you? Thank you.